Hi folks, welcome to another edition of the Omnist Hour. You might recognize the music behind me from two different perspectives. You might know it as movement from Holst the planets, Jupiter, the bringer of jollity. You might also recognize it as the tune to a song that talks about country. And in a rather special way that the world's kind of been told to associate with the United Kingdom, the British Empire, and maybe downplayed this song a bit. But we're going to talk about what it really means today. Okay, I hope not too loud in the background. Let's crank it down a little bit. Okay, where are we going today? Well, first of all, I need to tell you a little bit about this background. I'm going to get myself out of the way first to show you the whole picture. This is not AI drawn. This little funny monkey guy is what I was going to show in my next podcast as an AI creation, but we're not talking about that today. We're talking about this flag you see in front of you. You may not recognize this flag, or you may partially recognize it. You'll notice that part of the flag sort of is reminiscent of a lot of the flags of Europe, in that it has a cross motif, a white stripe in the middle and surrounded by a blue, and then 4 hearts around. Well, this is not a flag that's currently in use. It's very similar to the original flag of Frisia. If you're not familiar with Friesland, it is one of the provinces of the Netherlands now, but actually is the most important kingdom that ever existed in human memory. And that's where we're going today. The closest you'll find to this in the various Frisian flags you'll find, this is not very close to what the current provincial flag is. It was changed around to take out the cross, which is kind of a sad statement about a lot of shit that's gone down in the Netherlands since World War II, maybe even before World War II. When you do find this flag, Frisia as a separate country, you will note that instead of the hearts, it's got 4 little red things that look kind of like beans to me. Supposed to be some sort of a lily flower or something like that. I don't know. It looked pretty stupid. So while I was researching this, I got the inspiration to change them into hearts. And I thought the hearts would be more effective with a little black background around it. So we'd have a little black on the flag, so we wouldn't piss off the people that love black and complain that there's only white on this flag. You don't have any black. It's a racist flag. And then there's this yellow out in the field, which should make other people happy. But my intent was not to make people happy, actually. This is mostly a real flag, and probably was a real flag at one time before they doctored it to take the heart out of it. Okay, so let's now talk about the theme of this episode today. I'm going to call this one First Nations and False Flags, a brief history of cosmic religion. Okay, where are we going with that? Well, I'm going to kind of give you a history from both directions, because I think that's the best way to present this. Let's start with going back in history and looking at our tortured past, if you will. one of the topics that I've touched on for a while is that a lot of what we've been told about history is not correct. And it's not getting more correct with all the shit that the woke cult is trying to put into it now, all the new cultural Marxism. So I'm going to give you a quick shuffle back in history to tell you what really happened. Okay? So let's go back maybe 2,000 years. The last 2,000 years of history, most people will acknowledge that it's been the Christian era. We still date based upon an understanding of Christianity, which I've told you is actually a false flag dating. So, and no, I'm not attacking Christians. This is all purposeful. Because not only the adversary plants false flags, but so does God's team. Okay, it's a spiritual battle. And, well, like the old saying goes, all's fair in love and war. Actually, the chief combatants are God's two most ambitious and self-centered children, Lucifer and Lilith, who have been doing most of the battling at the expense of everybody else that just wants to get on with their life. Okay, and this is something that really makes the Bible hard to digest in its current form. So let's clear up some of that stuff right now. Okay, biblically, the truth is that there has been another species that has been the primary player in reconstructing this planet. And if you know anything about this planet's history, you know that it was destroyed by another planetary object about 4.5 billion years ago. The end result of which was destroyed planet where that used to be where the asteroid belt is, and our very interesting new Earth with its oddly positioned moon. Okay? That destruction heralded the beginning of day 7 of creation. Okay? The story that's told in the Bible is a condensation of a much more detailed telling that's in the Sumerian tablets, but both have been doctored by various factions in this spiritual battle. Okay, so you have to really look at all scriptures and sort out, okay, what are the consistencies here? What are the themes? You look across the world at the different, stories of origin, and you'll find common themes, and then you'll have like discordant themes. Okay? One way of civilizations documenting their origin is saying, oh, there was some really magical, wonderful beings that came and gave us a whole bunch of shit and made us powerful, and we love them so much. Okay? And then there's another origin type story that goes like, well, some magical, horrible beings came and enslaved us and made us do everything for them, and screwed our daughters and sent our sons off to war. Okay? Those are both things that did happen frequently. And they were part of basically the dance of creation. Okay? Because what's been going on in day 7 of creation is God wasn't there. Was there, but incarnating too. Okay? Trying to wake up to being, oh, I'm God. And during that wake-up period, okay, God would incarnate in different chosen species, different chosen people to further the story. Okay? The Story of Mankind. In fact, there's a wonderful book, one of my favorite books from childhood, by Hendrik Willem van Leeuwen, called The Story of Mankind. And it's interesting to look at all the revisions that have been made to that book, most of them since the poor guy died, which I think is pretty much a big sin, revising somebody's book without their permission. That's kind of like changing the Bible without the permission of whoever wrote the original scripture, whoever the original prophet was. And if you've heard me talk about the Bible before, you know that I do not believe it was written by God. It's not the literal word of God. I'm sorry. Yeah. Anybody who believes that is an absolute idiot, because you can find different translations, different versions, different manuscripts that read quite a bit different. Okay? God is not schizophrenic, at least not fully when he's fully awakened. So that just doesn't make any sense. Okay, so what's really been going on? Let's just talk about human history. Even let's talk about the whole biblical era. So if you read through the Bible in an original version of the Torah in Hebrew, you will discover that there are several periods talked about in Genesis. There is basically a large part of Genesis where God and other gods are incarnate, actually living in the flesh on this planet. The ones that created humanity, the Elohim of the first line of the Bible, are not God. Okay? That word is a plural. If it's used with a singular pronoun, that means it's a hive mind. The ones who created humanity, who upgraded the hominids that were wandering around this planet, Homo erectus, I think, is where they think the big change happened about 1 million years ago or so. That species that did that upgrade to our DNA was a Lilithian hive mind. Okay? They were adversaries of God. It had been so long, though, since the 4.5 billion years that this planet had to get reassembled, that this was a group of Lilithians who had largely forgotten the story. In fact, they had maybe a strong understanding of God, but their God was one of them. And this is part of what you're going to hear today, is that not all gods originate on this planet. In fact, the story of creation is kind of like the lungs of the physical universe breathing in and out. Everything started on this planet, expands to a point, and then at that point of expansion is where the adversary gods take over. And they gain power, and then they cause a contraction. And this is how the Hindus got this idea of a cyclical creation. It's an easy mistake to make if you've been doing this accordion expansion contraction a lot. And we've been stuck at the Big Bang size of the universe for quite a long time, trying to get past not entropy. Entropy's easy to conquer. What turned out to be difficult to conquer is cultural entropy, boredom. Okay, because we're playing a game here. Creation is a fun game. It's supposed to be a fun game. If it's not fun, people don't want to play, then, you know, that signals there's something wrong with the design. Okay, and that's the march of creation, has been improving this virtual reality game. Okay, so the truth of the matter was that first upgrade of humanity was to be a slave race for these adversary gods, the Lilithian Elohim. Okay? Now, once those Lilithian Elohim were on this planet, this is God's planet. So that is an opportunity for God to incarnate among those Lilithian Elohim. And one of God's incarnations among those Lilithian Elohim was as Enki, the one who is the bad guy that, well, the Enki story, I like the way it's told in Greek mythology better. In Greek mythology, there's a kind of a rogue of this group that violates the prime directive and starts screwing around with the flora and fauna of the planet, because these Lilithian Elohim are shapeshifters and they are hermaphroditic. Okay, they can shapeshift into any species and reproduce with it. Okay, this is how you direct evolution in DNA species. You can meld any two species if you've got this shape-shifting DNA matching capability as a physical entity. And there are physical entities that have that. In fact, there are more than one, which we'll get to talking about later. But I just want to give you the human side of that, the Bible side of it, to kind of preface this. Okay, so there was an early civilization of mostly humans that was ruled over by these Lilithian Elohim and their gradual mixed descendants after Zeus or Enki started mixing up the blood. Wasn't supposed to do that. They have a prime directive. We don't mess with the planet because we don't want to interfere with their evolution. We just gonna tweak their DNA of one a little bit so we can get them to help terraform their planet. That's kind of the rationale. They thought they were doing good by upgrading humanity, so humanity could help them out with stuff that while they were finishing the terraforming of the planet to be perfect for a Lilithian hive mind. That's what they had intended for humanity to be, and effectively was at that time, because they upgraded the pineal gland, they upgraded the brains a little bit, but actually they downgraded the heart brain to be very susceptible to programming. And this is why we've got so many people that basically are sure that they are one with everything and they love everything and there's no such thing as evil. It's just good we don't understand, Mr. Wizard. This is how hive minds work. Lilithian hive minds make you think everything's perfect, and they will mess with your mind to make you see what they think is perfect. So, early humanity could be attacking each other and thinking that they were having sex. And this shows up actually in some of the early cave art. I don't have it to show you right at hand, but there's some early battle depictions that basically show battle being almost a sexual ritual. All the males have erect penises, and there's obviously two tribes of people fighting each other, both male and female, although the females don't seem to be involved in the fighting. They just seem to be cheering, like cheerleaders. Okay? And very weird, violent scene that also shows some larger hominids that you would maybe think are their gods or their heroes, which heroes about the same as God. And here we link into where I'm getting at with this flag. Okay, the word hero is very similar to the word hiero, which we know from hieroglyphics. Hero is a generic name for these mixed breed gods. And they were not all human. Okay, before humanity, there were therianthrope species that were mixed with these humanoids to make a lot of different species. And that's where we get into the story of the Nephilim and all the giants and stuff like that. And giantism in general on this planet is evidence in the fossil record, and it's kind of just thrown aside. It's evident not only in hominids, but in almost every species. Interestingly enough, I don't think we've ever found many giant insect or spider fossils. There's a reason for that I can go into, and I'm not going to talk about it now. At any rate, at one time, there was basically a world civilization, and several world civilizations. The way that they started gets back to the Bible story of Elyon and the sons of God coming and finding the daughters of men attractive. Okay, this is not the first upgrade of humanity. It's later on. Even after the second, this is part of the second upgrade. Okay, the second upgrade was a group of Luciferian Elohim. The Luciferian Elohim are the gods of this physical universe, who is not the same as the God of the highest heaven. Okay? Each god has their own universe, their own private universe. And then there is a universe of pure thought that they have to share. And then this physical universe is one that Lucifer allows everybody to share as part of this spiritual battle. Okay? Lucifer is a testy guy, likes to fight, likes to have arguments, likes to have debates. Okay? That's what made him God's favorite, and also God's least favorite at other times. Okay, so this Luciferian Elohim bunch was led by a new set of creatures that was a little different than the original Lilithian Elohim. Luciferian Elohim have less power in general because, like I told you in the last segment about the difference between female and male vampires, okay, the male vampires are Luciferian, the female are Lilithian. The females are more powerful, but the males have the opportunity to earn redemption. That's why they would become male. They become male to serve the Luciferian plan, which is the plan for this physical universe, which reflects the original plan in God's mind, in God's private universe. Okay, the highest heaven, if you will. Okay, so the Luciferians actually mostly play on God's side. What makes them complicated is that when they incarnate in the physical universe, they have reincarnation amnesia. So they don't know exactly what their mission is. They have a life to live, and they have to choose how to live it. And so they can live it making decisions more or less as close as they can to the Ten Commandments, to, good karma, or they can just willfully break the law. So they can play it more on the adversary side, more on God's side. That's something that we all get the opportunity to do. Okay, so this second upgrade happened when this race of Pleiadian Lilithians invaded the planet. This was not the same ones as the original Elohim in the beginning of Genesis. This was the Aryan race, the Atlantean people. Okay, they were still godlike by human standards, and they still dominated and led humans, and were like the priest kings of little kingdoms. And it's mentioned that there were, I think, 80 of them that were brought here with El Elyon, and were his divine council on this planet. Okay? And El Elyon apportioned out kingdoms for them, where they could have, okay, this is where you can build your city and pull in the resources from this era, and let's just, don't cross anybody's boundaries, and we'll have a very happy place here, while we are helping this species become self-sufficient. Okay, so the Luciferian influx were maybe still authoritarian and totalitarian, but they had a good end in mind. They actually wanted to do something good for the people. The Lilithian ones just wanted to use them and get their resources and make them worship them and think everything was perfect. Okay? This is a theme that's been going back and forth, back and forth. At that time, there was basically a center of Luciferian civilization, Atlantis, on one side of the planet. And the center of Lemurian civilization was the Lilithian center, the adversary part of the planet, centered right here around Java, Indonesia. The continent that used to be here. There's a lot more land here back in those days, which made it easier to get along if you were a land-dwelling creature. And we're going to talk some about that too. Okay, so this has been transpiring on this planet as it was rebuilt and as we were trying to find a final chosen species that could raise a new version of God, a real capital M Messiah. Okay, now let's with that preface, I'm gonna go back to spiritual science view of it. This is kind of tying in with our history. I'm not going to talk about other gyrations, at least not right now, in the Bible, but there are some major errors, lies in the Bible, making good guys seem like bad guys seem like good guys. One I think I should mention, I think I did mention in my last podcast, is the fact that the house of David were demons, demon worshippers. They were possessors. They were Lilithians. They were a hive mind kind of tribe, because they didn't have. Well, okay. So this gets. Let's talk about sovereignty. So, in this perfect time of El Elyon, let me get more prominent here. In this perfect time of El Elyon and the Council of 80, these Pleiadian, Luciferian council, they didn't know, as well as the previous bunch, what this planet really was. They were just trying to explore and extend the planet and bring the species that they found there, which was, smart enough to be technological, if they could just get out from under the hive mind, bring them up to the level where they could become part of the Galactic Federation, which was already very active and actively fighting the hive mind. Multiple hive minds, actually, because there's also the Borg hive mind, which is the even more primordial one. Okay, so they were well aware of the spiritual battle going on and playing on the other side, on the God side in general, but also kind of playing on their own side, which, you know, is what makes religion complicated. Is, you know, it's hard to tell whether you're just playing for yourself or you're really playing for God. And you can fall down in any direction from, you know, the godly thing, either becoming Luciferian and authoritarian and wanting to impose order at all costs, or you could go the Lilithian route and want to destroy whatever order there is because they're not fair. We're all oppressed. Okay? So this game, this spiritual battle that's been playing out in the physical universe, is between order and chaos, neither of which is God. Okay? God is a creator, a builder. Okay? Knows that having all the blocks in perfect order makes them boring. It's like, okay, I built the perfect thing with my Lego set. Now what do? I don't have any pieces left. You know, I can put my army men around it and play with if I built a castle or something, but it gets boring. And so creation is about building new environments. If you want to do it right, you've got to add pieces to the thing so you don't have to destroy what's there. And that has been the ultimate goal of creation, is to have a Lego set, if you will, a universal Lego set that never runs out of pieces, never runs out of new players, never runs out of opportunities for those new players to grow into gods. Okay, so let's talk about how that all came about. Now, if you've followed my channel for very long, you know that the primary construct of virtual reality is the soul merkaba. This is a 12D string, 12-dimensional string. And although you could think of it as three tetrahedrons that are all, you know, have their own dimensionality of it, their own time space, if you will. I prefer to think of it as kind of a cellular structure, because that ties better with what actually you can observe in nature. Okay, so the 12D Merkaba is basically made up of layers that are kind of like a cell. The innermost four layers are your whole personal record of all your experiences in all the universes you've ever transmigrated to, all the avatars you've ever occupied in virtual reality. And if this gets built up enough, you will actually be able to control your own virtual reality, and this is how you sort of have control over your own universe. After you've built up this complete 12D Merkaba to a level of energy, of consciousness, that is above a certain threshold to become a god. Okay, the innermost four layers then, the layers go kind of similarly. The center, the innermost layer, is like the nucleus of a cell. Okay, so this is where the actual experiences and everything are stored. There's a next layer out that is the karma. This is like a boundary layer. This is the field of what can go through. Okay, as you build up a karmic membrane, you have this innate sense of what you're going to do, what you're not going to do, who you're going to let into your universe, who you're going to keep out. Okay, so that guards the nucleus. The next layer out is the Luciferian layer. This is the stuff that you let into your inner circle. You don't let inside the nucleus, but you use to do processes outside, kind of the dirty work of your experience, the stuff that you had to do, but you wish you didn't have to do. I mean, the sins you had to commit because you had to eat, you had to survive, etc. Okay, there are basic constraints of having an incarnation that, if you want to have that incarnation mean anything, if you want to have time to learn anything, you got to eat. Sometimes you've got to defend your family, got to defend your children so your DNA history can continue. Okay, that's the Luciferian layer. Then there's an outermost layer that's kind of a fatty membrane that is all the stuff you did just because you were following the rules. You were acting this way because you were programmed that way in the character you took in the physical universe, or the character that your spiritual home wanted you to play. Okay, so you have two programs. Unless you're a god living in your own universe, you're always working under the programs of at least one character play, the program of the character you're playing in the physical universe, and if you have incarnated, you've had experience in other spiritual universes who are going to have their idea of how they want you to play. And you'll have guides that will guide you and say, oh, you should do this, you should do that. I think, oh, look at this opportunity here. Okay, so they're helpers, but they also have their own agenda. And if you have been attending a hellish afterlife, they could be giving you all the wrong advice. Okay, so that's you got 4 layers there, and the next 4 layers out are similar. These are your experiences in universes other than your own private universe. So these are the actions you did in service of another god, if you will. And again, they take on the different shapes of, okay, were you serving a godly god or a karmic god or a Luciferian god, or just doing what I'm told? Okay. Now, this Luciferian layer might also contain elements of Lilithian action. This is a good merkaba here, but you could have a bad merkaba where you kept a lot of negativity, a lot of really destructive characteristics in your nature. Okay, this is God's merkaba. This is the best you could do. The outermost 4 layers then are similar, but these represent physical incarnation experiences. And if you do everything right, that gives you a really, really great set of boundaries to keep you from getting infected by the Lilithian and Luciferian struggles going on outside. Okay, if you, here's an example of a Lilithian evil soul. Okay, they may have a corrupted nucleus in the center, and they have a corrupted layer or layers in spiritual and physical incarnations. Okay, and so they see what's outside their reality. These karmically responsible souls, they see them as the adversary. I think I need to redraw this a little bit to show a little bit, but I will do that later. Okay, and so you can also have one that's corrupted in more of a Luciferian way. Okay, so they generally only have physical corruption. They don't have spiritual corruption. So they've been serving Lucifer in the physical universe but getting corrupted by physical addictions and so forth that they still carry with them. Okay, so where are we going with this? Well, let's talk about, so this, we've been talking about this from an individual standpoint, either an individual God or an individual person, a soul. This structure also applies to other things, collectives. It applies to heavenly bodies. So, think of this as our planet Earth. During the course of the development of this planet, it has developed these layers. It has developed its own soul. And when it was destroyed 4.5 billion years ago, that only took out the physical layer. That changed the physical layer and changed the makeup of the outermost piece of this planet. This planet has 3 layers in it. The innermost core is the elemental layer. Now, you remember we talking about creation. There were 2 main phases of creation. One was elemental creation, where we made all the elements, and the gods put together the elements in different ways to make androids, make inorganic life. And then there was the DNA phase of creation. Okay? That is the 2 latermost layers of this planet. In fact, of every heavenly body has an innermost layer that is elemental. And that layer, that accretion of matter, has happened through 2 processes. Not just gas clouds condensing because of gravity, but actually in that innermost layer is a god trying to build its own realm, its own kingdom. And if you have the God level elemental power, you can create elements. You don't have to wait for billions of years for those elements to come to you, unless you're not a very powerful God. Okay? If your powers have been taken away from you, and powers get taken away if you violate the laws of karma. If you turn on God, you got to do things the hard way. Okay, so in this central part of every heavenly body, there is a god of this collective. And our early history, when we worshiped the sun, the moon, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, they were gods and goddesses. They were. They had their own soul, their own oversoul, their own elemental minions, and their own DNA minions. Sometimes, okay? If you wipe out all the elemental consciousness in a heavenly body, it has no driver. So it's basically going to be on autopilot. And that is what you can see happening with a lot of the systems and so forth, the star systems and the galaxies that have been observed that, you know, sort of form, oh, well, this is what they normally do. And you can formulate laws and theories that, okay, you can predict what they're going to do. This is what the scientists would like everything to be. The very Luciferian want everything to work like a clock. Okay, that's the goal of a Luciferian, is that order. I want to be able to predict everything out to the nth detail. Okay, that's not God. Okay. Science is a god, but it's not the big G god, okay? So, if you can kick all the elemental forces out of a thing, out of a heavenly body, it will be very predictable, unless it's got DNA, a DNA layer of creatures that are doing something different. And every body in this solar system has at least one of those layers still active. Okay, some of the planets in the solar system don't seem to have any tectonic activity. They don't seem to be very active geologically. That's because there's no driving force in the elemental layer. Those elementals have all been driven off, probably by the DNA creatures that are hiding in the center. Okay? We have this term that's often talked about as Middle Earth or the Middle Kingdom. In fact, China calls themselves the Middle Kingdom. That's bullshit. The Middle Kingdom actually is this middle layer of inner DNA-based life. This is a spiritual layer, okay? The ones who get to go there are souls who have died and have the spiritual requirements to go there. Now, as I talked about, we've been in an experiment where souls are, when we want to have this planet sealed off to do an experiment, all the souls have to go in. They can't go out, because that would contaminate the rest of the universe before we're done with this experiment. So what's been happening is both good and bad souls of a higher spirituality have been going into the planet, especially when they get to be God level, because we don't want gods outplaying in this phase of the experiment. Okay? This is the final phase where we've got a very dumb chosen species that, if they get to God level, if they have a Messiah incarnation, they don't come back unless they're undead. Okay? There are many undead species, and they all live in this center area. And there are some shapeshifters that will come out of there and live in the physical layer. Okay, so when we're talking about the UAP phenomenon, they're not all coming from the cosmos. Some are coming from inside. They can be either good or bad. They're trying to do what they think is best for this planet. And some of them think that, we'd be happier if we were all one big hive mind and we told everybody what to think, when to think, how to think, and that would be perfect. Everybody would be peaceful. Kumbaya, kumbaya. Well, that's one way to run a planet, but it's not a very productive way. It's a lazy way, because basically nobody cares about anything anymore. Everybody gets something for nothing. The children grow up stupid. They spend all their time, playing video games and texting their friends and posting selfies of themselves and their cats and bullshit like that. It's non-productive. Okay, so that's why they're called adversaries. They love you to death. They really mean you well sometimes, but they are bad for you. Okay? Spiritual candy is what they want. That's not what this planet is about. There are other planets, other civilizations that run their show that way, and they're welcome to do it. This is a very special planet because this is God's planet. This is God's solar system. This is God's galaxy. Okay? These are this series of test tubes that Lucifer agreed, yes, God, you can have this part of my universe. All the rest of it is mine, as soon as I can take it back from the Lilithians. And that's the battle going on in this universe. And it will always go on until we stop finding more Lilithian hive minds to drive out. Okay? And we want to help Lucifer do that, because Lucifer has obeyed God, has respected God's boundaries. So what does this look like then? You can imagine that you've got, this might be our planet. The sun, our sun would be similar, but maybe it's got more corruption in some of the layers. It needs to be swept clean at some levels of evil. Our planet actually has a fair amount of evil in it. This is what is causing the apocalypse we're going through right now. We're trying to drive that evil away. And you've got forces inside and outside who like it just fine. We want to keep this game going. The way they keep it going is kind of a ping pong game. And there's multiple ways they play ping pong. One is it's cultural ping pong between Lilithian and Luciferian civilizations, which tend to be either matrilinear or patriarchal. They play it with race games, chosen people, which, is why so many people hate Jews. So many people hate gypsies. People have prejudices based on your skin color or, where you're from, all sorts of prejudices. That's all adversarial working of Lilithian hive cults on mind controlling you into, a particular religion. Okay, if you think your God is the only God, you are worshiping a Lilithian god or a Luciferian god. The difference is the Luciferian gods at least are trying to follow the Ten Commandments. They don't just chuck them out the window. Okay, if you remember, one of the Ten Commandments is honor your mother and father. Okay, that one alone will tell you who the really bad guys are on this planet right now. It's the ones who are rebelling against their parents, rebelling against their parents' religion, rebelling against their parents' culture, wanting to destroy and rewrite history. Those are the bad guys. Okay? That's the adversary. If you are in that woke cult, globalist, communist position, you are playing the evil game. And I gotta warn you, you're not gonna win. And you're not going to get to stay on this planet. Either on the top or on the inside. You're gone. We will have some of the Lilithian souls who have surrendered, and we will keep them in sort of a prison state. So we'll have evil around to show the kids, look, see the monster in the evil museum. Well, maybe you could go in and play in the tiger cage if that is going to be your mission. You got to learn how to fight tigers. Okay, so we do keep sin around, but we keep it chained up, and that's the best you're going to do in this apocalypse. And that will only be if you are a teacher of evil that's really good at following instructions and staying within the lines of what you're told you can or can't not do. Which most of these, well, I don't know. Maybe a lot of these young kids might fit in that mold where, if they're told not to do something, they won't do it, even though they want to do it. that's a sin that's been reined in. They might be useful in the temple of sin, in the city of God. Okay, so now what happens here is this middle earth is peopled by spirits who have died, and if you die during this experiment, you automatically get a level up. So every human incarnated on this planet has finished the game one level higher in spirituality than they were before. That next higher level gets you incarnated as some kind of undead here. And when I say undead, they're not all evil, okay? Ghosts are undead. They're just like lost souls that want to hang around and they want to haunt. And so they'll haunt their familiar places and maybe scare you a little bit, but they don't really mean to. Most of the time they just want to watch. Okay, and those ones that just want to watch, that's the ones that are most godly, because they know if I muck with characters that are at a lower consciousness level than me, physically incarnated, and muck with their minds, or play with stuff that possess things as demons do, they know that that's an evil thing. It's going to build more corruption into their merkaba. Okay, so some of these quote undead are like the fairy folk. And if you read the tales of the fairy folk, you will know that sometimes they are mischievous, sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they have relationships with humans, and they will intermix, and sometimes they will take a human to live in their realm, or they will come out and live in the human realm for a while. And these more physical undead are the werewolves, the vampires, the zombies, the all sorts of different half-breed were-bears, were-Neanderthals. I think that's kind of what the Sasquatch is. It's an earlier hominid, God-level hominid that have their own very simplistic religion. Okay. Another thing I want to talk about that maybe will help you understand this. If you ever watched an old movie or read the book The Lost World, H.G. Wells, one thing you'll find that when they go to this special place where it was like they found all the dinosaurs and these cavemen and stuff like that, if you watch the movie, they find out that, if you go upstream of this river that's running in this place, you find that everything gets more evolved. And there's actually, when they get to the center, there's a tribe that is every bit as capable as they are, and is kind of in control of their environment instead of at the mercy of it. Where at the bottom end, where the dinosaurs are kind of in control. This is kind of like it works here. It's a supply chain, a spiritual supply chain. And the chain goes inward and outward. And you can advance in an inward way by going through these various stages of undeadhood. And if you're serving the god of your planet as an undead, you can eventually become the highest level undead, which is basically a kavod god, an ark, a carrier of your favorites, which could be, your significant other, just soulmate, or it could be a whole tribe. And when you get to that level, then you get to go break off from this heavenly body and go associate yourself with another heavenly body somewhere that doesn't have a God yet. That can happen by going outward too, and this is why we've had some civilizations that buried their dead and some that burned their dead, because there have been ways at different times of furthering your spiritual journey by going in and by going out. Okay, and there's been this interplay of, in some cultures, the top god was the god of the underworld or goddess. In others, the top god was the sky god or the sky mother. Okay, all these dualities are an important part of this supply chain. And the name of the game has been, for the last 4.5 billion years, getting this supply chain to work well enough that it can expand outside of the bounds of the Big Bang. And the Big Bang doesn't have a beginning, doesn't have an end per se. It has a presumed beginning that it looks like it began at such and such time because everything looks like it was once at a center because it's expanding out from that center. This is an optical illusion. The midpoint of the Big Bang was where we are right now. This era of human history where we've been trying to get past as the final chosen species. This is the final chosen species because finally what had to happen is, God said, I got to take this bitter pill of reincarnation and amnesia and forget every time like everybody else. Because I keep waking up and knowing more than everybody else, and then, we're still not to the point where we learn anything. And so it's been only since this last version of humanity that the rules have been exactly the same that God plays by in every other soul. God has been every kind of creature that ever lived on this planet. That was his punishment. That was his penance for the first wave of creation where he was just in control of everything and knew everything and, was able to move any piece anywhere. Okay, that's how it used to be. And that's maybe how some think they would like God to be again. It's not going to happen. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. There's nothing more true. Give enough power to any soul and they will become corrupted and misuse that power. You don't want any almighty gods in your universe if you're smart. There's a lot of souls that aren't smart and they want that. They want somebody to tell them what to do, when to do it, how to do it. And, okay, fine. There's a place for you too, but it ain't here. Okay, so basically let's tie back then to where we're going with this interesting flag that I was showing you. Now it turns out that in our earliest history, like I said, the center of where the Atlantean civilization was in the Atlantic. And the center of where the Lilithian civilization was in the Pacific. Pacific, peace, pacify. Okay? The names, it's right in the damn names. Okay? At one time, the sea levels were a lot lower than they are now. And it had nothing to do with carbon dioxide. This is bullshit. It had to do with spiritual energy. Okay? Because as souls accumulate inside the planet, and there's a large amount of evil there, that evil clumps into negative matter. In the very center, in the elemental center, you have negative matter accumulate. And that negative matter is what creates gravity. Okay? Negative matter can be at the center of anything. Also positive matter can be. But then the positive matter is going to want to attract negative matter. The negative matter wants to attract positive matter. And this is how we build stars. We build planets. They can grow out or they can grow in. And as they grow and build these layers of their character, you can have evil planets and good planets. You can have evil star systems and good star systems. And when you have these highly polarized systems, they will have spiritual battles until they can become depolarized. The only way to depolarize them is to exile the ones that don't want to play by the rules of your God. And every planet has their own God. But there is a higher God that is the first that started the planetary system. Not always the God of the star, because this system started with this planet. This planet existed before our sun. This may warp your mind, but no, it's true. Galileo, Copernicus, sorry, you were just dead wrong. The center of creation is this planet. At least has been whenever God was incarnating here and not over on the far side of the universe making a new adversary. Sometimes God incarnates to make a new version of himself or new versions of any of the children. That's the special magic of God. This is why what the meaning of the name Yahweh is. It's not the name of a God. It actually means I am who I will be. That's what Yahweh means. It's not one God. It is the God of the Hebrew people, who sometimes was an incarnation of God, sometimes was an incarnation of the adversary, sometimes was an incarnation of Lucifer, or Lilith, or Karma, or even Borg. Okay, any of the primordial characters, plus some, could have been Yahweh at some time. And this is what makes the Bible especially hard to read if you don't know that, especially for people that have read a version of the Old Testament that translates everything in sight as God. Okay, the truth of the matter is that at the time that Moses started this Hebrew movement, the tribes of Israel were mapped into the previous idea of this tribal setup of Abraham. Abraham was not a Semite, was not a Hebrew. Abraham came most recently from Sumeria, but was actually from India, the Brahmin culture. The old Hindu culture, the reason Abraham left, you know that there was the Indus Valley civilization that was destroyed, that actually they're finding out is where the first writing was, and somehow this civilization just disappeared, and the subsequent civilizations in India didn't seem to have a real strong tie to it. This was because this was the furthest extent of the Aryan civilization before there was a backlash of Lilithian, the adversary, fighting back. The empire strikes back. Okay, and they wiped out this Indus civilization. If you look at the Indus civilization, you will see their inscriptions, their seal inscriptions, always have a bull on them. Whatever they haven't completely deciphered the writing yet. They're working on it. I think they're very close to doing it. But the interesting thing is, every single piece of writing from that civilization has a bull. Because why? Because the previous versions of God before humanity became the final chosen species were Tauran. Centaurs, the centaur Chiron was where the word Christ came from, where the Christogram came from. There was an earlier celestial bull where the Taurogram came from, the Ankh. Do you remember what the Ankh looks like? It looks like a cross with a head on it. That's where that symbol comes from. It's a Christian symbol. It's a pre-human Christian symbol. It's a pagan Christian symbol. And so is the Christogram. Remember, the Christogram is a cross like that with a row sticking up, which looks kind of like an animal all splayed out with a big penis hanging off the bottom. Which, yeah, the Taurans were horny bastards. That's why that became the chosen so often, and not the lion. Lions are kind of lazy. They're important in creation, but it's Taurans that really matter. Lions are more easy to corrupt. They let the women in the pride take over and do everything, and then just kind of sit around and be the big stud. When they're attacked by another species or another pride, it's actually the female lions that are the fiercest. You ever have any experience with lions, you'll know that unless a male goes crazy, maybe because he doesn't have a stable of females and is getting too horny or something like that, lions don't have as stable a civilization as Taurans, as bulls, as cows. And that's what has made those species the most helpful to us, even though other therianthrope species get a lot more credit, like the fish people. Oh, so now what I need to go to and tell you there is, as well, is there's a lot of legends about us being helped after the flood by different characters. In the Americas, there's talk of Quetzalcoatl, a bird man that comes and helps them reestablish civilization. In Mesopotamian region, it's a fish person, Uranus. Other places, it's different characters, sometimes just like a man, the seven sages. Okay, there are a lot of different stories like that, and that represents basically what happens with let me go back over here for a sec. This outermost layer of a planet or of a star is the layer that is subject to the most wear and tear. This is where you can be really damaged by something coming and hitting you. Okay, you can lose this whole layer and have to rebuild up this physical layer and repopulate. And that's what happened 4.5 billion years ago. We had these inner twomost layers, and it was only that outermost layer that suffered significant damage. Now, the adversary didn't know about that. These elemental and spiritual creatures inside were like God's secret weapon. Okay? They knew that they were part of this planet. They were bound to this planet until this experiment was done. So they willfully played roles on both sides. And this is what balanced what was a concerted attack from the outside of those that didn't know that there was anything special about this planet with what was going on inside. Okay? The exterior adversaries have been trying to basically wipe out this whole layer by hitting us with another asteroid or a massive solar event that's going to, make an extinction level event. Some of the evil inside has been doing that too, and that's contributing to the instability of our planet right now and the increase in volcanic activity. And because there is so much evil accumulated in the core of this planet, it is causing the planet to contract. And this is what has made sea levels rise over time, not CO2. Yes, human activity can raise or lower the temperature for a time. But even like the biggest volcanic eruption, which spews, in a very short amount of time, as much emissions, as much, mostly methane is the one that's really dangerous, greenhouse gases, in large amounts, much larger than our whole civilization does, folks. You've been told a big patch of fucking worthless lies about this climate change stuff, and you've got to get that. I mean, they're telling you that because they're playing for the adversary. They're trying to destroy the whole species. They may not know it. They may be just useful idiots thinking they're doing good because, CO2 is bad in the atmosphere. We gotta kill all the cow farts. We gotta kill all the human farts. These are stupid people, and they're doing evil, and we gotta stop them. The truth is that what's going to happen, and it's going to happen in the next year. It won't be an instantaneous process, but it will start. There's going to be a prisoner exchange, effectively. A cosmic prisoner exchange. We're going to be taking these evil souls, or the corrupted souls, and sending them by Merkaba craft, arcs, to other planets. Some will go to their home planet in this solar system if they are of one of these undead species and have agreed to play by God's rules and play on God's side. They will get to go back to these planets, and then those planets, they still have some evil undead there, but the balance will now shift, and they will eventually be driven out of the chosen solar system. So we're going to be shifting over from the adversary trying to contract to the point where, we got to do the whole game over again, find a new Messiah. That's not going to happen anymore. Why? Because as I've been telling you, you can go talk to the people that are getting data from the James Webb Space Telescope, and a good number of them are beginning to believe that, the Big Bang must not be real. Now, some do believe in the Big Bang and will continue to believe in the Big Bang throughout the next year. And those are the ones that are going to be staying in the old space-time, because that is a choice. You can choose to disbelieve in God. You can choose to disbelieve in the Messiah. Nobody's going to force you to, because God, the real God, is a God of religious freedom. Okay? It is a God of religious freedom and political freedom, responsible freedom, responsible government. And that's what we're about to do, is restore responsible government to God's chosen planet. It's right there in the Bible. Everybody knows that you hear about the reestablishing of the temple, the establishing of the city of God, the kingdom of God on earth, and heaven is as above, so below. It's already taken shape in the highest heaven. It's already planned out there. There's just a little bit of final tweaking to do, because they knew who all the characters were, but they didn't know how the characters were going to play the game. And until they got to meet the Messiah in the flesh, they didn't know exactly how the highest heaven needed to be. And this is why we've seen conflicting ideas of perfection all throughout history. Why we've still got some people, these very fundamentalist Bible belters, thinking that, oh, well, heaven's got to be like the vision of Ezekiel. Isaiah, that's what heaven looks like, seraphim and cherubim running all around. That's an old highest heaven. That's a pre-human Messiah heaven. Pre-DNA Messiah heaven. It's an elemental heaven. Okay? That's not what we want, folks. Not what we want for this planet, not what God wants for the whole shooting match. Okay? Like it or not, we are the final chosen species for a reason, because this soul vehicle is the best ever designed for training souls to wake up to what they want to do, what they're going to be happy doing, what their passions are, what their specialty is, what their weaknesses are. And that's why there's so many rooms in the heavens. Okay, there's not just one highest heaven. There are a lot of heavens and hells that suit different personalities, different strengths and weaknesses. There are some universes that are kind of like R&R universes. Go for a vacation. Watch the movie Total Recall. That's another movie that has so many tells of what life is going to be like in the future. And it's going to be a lot of fun if you know how to play the game. But you got to pay your dues. Okay? And the way you pay your dues, again, it's like I was telling you, this moving to the source. The source is not we're all one. That's as far from God as you can get. As stupid as you can get is, I'm going to be one with everything. Okay? The name of the game is getting to the center. If you can ever get a chance to play the Messiah, then you get to be the next one in the highest heaven that gets to be God in the divine council. And the previous winner, the previous high score in the Messiah role, gets to have a vacation. Go focus on something else for a while, because it gets boring being God even. Okay, that's what's so great about this game. You can play at your own pace. You can play in your own style. If you want to be an evil player, go for it. Be an evil player. you'll eventually end up as far from God as possible. And if you get far enough, you get depressed, and you realize that it's not so much fun being all one with a bunch of jerks, and you'll change your ways and you'll start moving back in. And sex is an important piece of it, because the males move out. They're the explorers. They're the Starship Troopers. They're the Starfleet, going out to fight the adversary, explore new worlds, start colonies. The females want to come back. And the ultimate dream that every human female has is basically to marry what they envision as being God. That's why so many women became nuns in the Middle Ages, because they thought, I'm going to be the bride of Christ. That's got to be better than any of these bastards that I see around me, drinking and wenching and raping and fighting each other. Okay, that's the beauty of the system. It doesn't take any work to keep it going. You can just have fun, and you'll just naturally find your place. Not everybody is going to find their way to becoming part of the divine council, part of this highest heaven, at least not as a human. Okay, you have that opportunity, but it's not necessarily where everybody wants to spend eternity. If you raise yourself to God level, you have to go there one day for your little celebration. See what the highest heaven is like. Let the other folks there meet you, see what kind of God you are, and maybe you'll get an invite to stay longer. Most of the time, it's like, okay, nice seeing you. We'll see you next time you advance to a God level. Get the hell out of here. You go to your own universe. Okay, you're corrupting us. You're corrupting our children. This is the way it works. If you get invited to stay longer, if you can be tolerated in the highest heaven for 1,001 nights in highest heaven days, then you get to stay. Unless you're voted off the island. The divine council can't exile people from the highest heaven. Even God can be exiled if they can't stand him anymore, and he's got to go try to work his way back, and the previous version steps back in. Sorry, your replacement didn't work out. We're going to have you come out of retirement and be God again for a while. This is the way it works. It's a very fair system, very equitable system, gives everybody the same opportunities. And because this new space-time is unlimited, you have infinite opportunities. You may already be a God a million years in the future. You may well be the big G God a million years in the future. You just don't know it yet. You get to go find out. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that miraculous that everybody gets to make their own story? It may turn out that you're going to get to be the God of another planet or galaxy or star and have your own little heavenly Genesis story intermixed with all of these related Genesis stories. That's why, the other image that I think you need to get firmly rooted in your mind to understand how creation actually works, how the simulation multiverse works, is one of stacking dolls. The Russian Matryoshka stacking dolls? Only the way it works is that the dolls, you keep opening and there's more dolls inside. And then you can look outside and, oh, this doll actually has many dolls that go into the next doll. And if you go to the biggest level, well, then it just kind of circulates back again, because at the biggest level where everything is connected, where you're one with everything, you're actually nothing, and you have you can just fall into any other layer of the stack. It's like a Mobius strip. Okay, you can be moving toward God, you can be moving toward the adversary, but it all kind of wraps around eventually. Because everybody, I don't know, God never did, but most souls get to a point where they want to start the game over. They just, I've done everything I could in this merkaba with this set of memories and experiences, and I'm just kind of bored with where I'm at, and I can't seem to get any further. Okay, that's the time when you should say, you know what, I think I'm going to go to nirvana. I'm going to become one with everything. I'm going to assimilate with the Borg. Okay, it should be a voluntary choice like that, not coerced as it is right now with so many of these dark religions that we have going around telling people how wonderful nirvana is. Telling people that, oh, your ego is evil. You can't have an ego. You've got to go destroy it. Okay? That's a lie. That's evil teaching. That's an evil religion if you're telling people shit like that. Stop doing it, or you are going to be exiting this planet in short order within the next year. Okay, I've got to wrap it up now. My wife is hollering at me. So like, share, subscribe. Comment, do whatever you want with this content. Prepare for an interesting year ahead. Happy karma.